Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Honest Art Podcast. This is an exciting topic to talk about, but as usual, like most things, it's something I really didn't learn about until later in my art career, when I was really, really going down that rabbit hole of trying to understand what is it that's going to elevate my art? How do I get from kind of average art to making art that galleries have and that, you see in maybe some public spaces, like really, really elevated art? And as much as I looked at art, or I looked at the work of like the greats and tried to really discern what it was that they were doing, I still couldn't quite figure this out. And what it is that I'm talking about is negative space. And I kind of don't even like the term negative space because it feels so negative. But that's kind of what it is. I'm going to break it down a little bit more, but you may have heard it called like background space or white space. The thing about background space that I don't like is that sometimes, like if you're talking about maybe a landscape or an abstract, or it's like, what's the background? I don't even know. So in that case, I think negative space is better. Again, some people call it white space, but doesn't have to be white, so that can be a little confusing. Other people call it, painting the void. And I'm like, well, that just sounds depressing, honestly. So for the sake of this podcast and for the sake of really, really elevating your art, we are going to go with negative space, okay? So let's get into it. Are you ready? Let's get messy. All right, so let's get into it. Negative space, and what is it? All right, so here's the way I like to look at it, is like negative space is like the empty space around the thing that we're painting, okay? And that's going to be confusing if you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm an abstract artist. Well, here's, an example. All right, so if you're reading a book, okay, and you read all of the letters, the white that's around the letters, it's around the black, is the negative space. But this is what's so exciting. You see, I get so excited. The thing is that when you understand that you wouldn't be able to see or be able to read the black without the white, then you understand the importance that negative space holds to bring forward really like the important thing, right? The what we really want the viewer to focus on, like it's the black, that's the primary thing. So we got to have an understanding of what we can do with that negative space to make the focal point, or to make the creation that we've done, to make that stand out. Now, the reason why this was like so hard for me, and honestly, I think a lot of artists, it's like so hard for me to grasp at first, is because when I was painting, I thought everything was important. Like I wanted to express everything that I was doing. I didn't want to hold anything back from what I was doing. So everything was important. So of course I wasn't thinking about like positive space or like the area of interest versus the negative space, because in my mind, everything was an area of interest. But when I started to understand just how important this can be to elevating my art, and so that people could really appreciate the art that we're making, when I started to understand that, man, it had such an impact. So I hope if some of you, I know some of you are listening to this, but if you are watching on YouTube, I'm going to give a few demonstrations. So one of the things that I have here is, well, I'll start with like Matisse. Remember I said that I don't like to call negative space white space because it assumes that it has to be white. Well, in Matisse's, I think it's called The Dancer. Amy, is that correct? I don't know. Amy, my executive producer of the podcast, she's like the art historian. Anyway, but I'm holding it up, so hopefully you can see this on YouTube. But it's the blue and the green, that's the negative space around the dancers that actually enhances the dancers, okay? So very, very important use of this negative space. But I know a lot of you out there are abstract artists like I am. So it's like, okay, how am I supposed to use negative space, if I'm an abstract artist? I'm about to tell you. So I'm glad if you're watching this on YouTube so you can see this. Okay, so I've got here a copy of Helen Frankenthaler's work from, 1959. And as you can see here with this piece of art, it's the negative space around the colors that it's enhancing the colors within the piece, and thereby making it that much more impactful. But like for me, what I used to do when I first started painting is, I would just have stuff everywhere, from the top of the painting to the top of the canvas to the bottom of the canvas, and all of the corners and everything. And it's like, without the negative space, I had no idea where to look, or the viewer had no idea where to look. So I'm going to show you one more to really just drive this home. And that is, by the way, you guys, this is the best book. It's The Story of Art Without Men. I'm not hating on men because I love you guys, but this is the coolest book. You can actually find it on my Amazon shop. But regardless, let me show you another great example for those of you who are abstract artists. This is Joan Mitchell's work. So I hope that you can see this. Amy, you want to let me know if they can see this? A little bit closer? Yeah. Okay. So this is a piece by Joan Mitchell right here. And what you will notice is not every area of the canvas is taken up with color. In the corners, there's space, and around it, there's space. So that the area where it looks like it's some gray, it doesn't look like it's pure white, but I know Joan Mitchell was also known for using some raw canvas as well. That negative space is what creates the impact for us to really be able to appreciate the art. I could not figure that out to save my life forever. Let me show you one more piece of Joan Mitchell's, which I think a lot of you are going to probably be able to relate to. Okay, love these, but it's not completely evident when you first see them what's going on with the negative space. Okay, can you see this? It's not automatically evident that there's negative space. But look at the top. Can you see the top and in the corners? That is intentional. That is her negative space. It's, again, Joan Mitchell, I'm not sure if I said that. It's a piece from 1981. And that helps us focus on what's important in the painting. So, let me just go through a few of the things that it can do in your work, okay? First thing is it helps to create balance in the piece, right? So if there's like for me when I'm doing abstract work, if it's just all like the same value and the same sort of brush strokes and like there's no negative space, there's no balance within the piece. It can feel really, really heavy. And so by allowing that negative space to be part of the work, it helps me to stay in the piece and to be able to go, oh, I'm going to go from the right, I'm going to go to the left, I'm going to go to the bottom. It helps to create this balance within the work. And then the other thing it does, believe it or not, is it provides movement in the art. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, how does that provide movement? I'm going to tell you, all right, stay with me. You're going to love this, especially if you are seeing this on YouTube. But you can use that negative space to create and to provide movement within the art. I'll show you or talk about how to do that in just a minute. The other thing that the negative space does, and I know I've been talking about this in this way, but think of it like this. It's like the negative space is our way of going, look here, focus on this. This is what is the most important thing in the piece, right? Without the negative space, everything seems important or everything seems really, really loud, right? But providing that negative space within it is a way of going here. This is what I want you to focus on. It's like a conversation. Somebody like goes off and like, no, that's not what I was trying to say. This is what I was trying to say. So that negative space allows that to happen. The Honest Art Podcast is now on Patreon. And if you're like me, I didn't know what that was, but this is the good news. It's a private community platform, so you can get even more from the Honest Art Podcast. So exciting. So as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and for a little bit more, just a few more bucks, you get things like behind the scenes shenanigans that I'm up to. You get connection within the community of Patreon. We get to do Q&As. It's just a little bit more intimate, and you get discounts. You get early access to workshops, all kind of things. So consider joining my Patreon community, and you can do that at the link in the show notes. All right. Now, the other thing that negative space does is it provides some breathing room, or if you've taken my color course for Rebels, you'll hear me talk about how it gives us a place for our eye to rest. So, within Joan Mitchell's, she left some space up at the top and in the corners. We could go up there. We could take our eye up to those places. It gives our eye a place to rest. And then in this one here, we can, with Matisse, we want to focus on all of this, but the negative space also creates interest and movement and gives our brain, our eye, a place for the eye to rest. Now, remember I said that when I was first starting, I just wanted to be really, really expressive. Well, it's first starting abstract art. I just wanted to be really, really expressive, right? And I wasn't thinking about any negative space. I wasn't thinking about maybe a softer conversation somewhere, right? So now that I do that, it's kind of like that's the place. Like we want to sit and have a cocktail. Right? We go to that negative space, and it's what allows us to stay in front of that painting. Like if you go to a museum and you're looking at it, you may not even realize it, but it's the negative space that allows us to stay in it and to go from focal point to focal point, or maybe there's just one within the piece. You could see this a lot in some of the Renaissance paintings where there's a lot of landscapes, a lot of things like that. And they took such care that the negative space was a way to attract your eye to go to the focal point, to the place that they really wanted us to see. Again, you could also see this in the Mona Lisa. So, the Mona Lisa, there's plenty of negative space within that so that we can focus on her eyes or we can focus on her hands. But that negative space is so important so that we stay in it, that we sit there and we just want to continue to gaze at the painting. So when you're thinking about, maybe you paint expressionism, maybe you paint more of a representational, whatever it might be, you can incorporate this negative space in, regardless of what it is. And I like to think, because I love painting florals, I know a lot of you out there love to paint florals as well. So, from a representational art standpoint, it's like if you have a vase of flowers, right? And you're wanting to focus on a vase of flowers. Well, if you had the vase and the flowers and you created some negative space around that, whatever it might look like. And by the way, it doesn't have to be solid. I'm going to talk about how, like, some fun things you can do that it's not just solid. But let me go back. So let's say that you had this floral that you're painting, the vase and the flowers, but in the background you had a bunch of flowers within it, or maybe flowers and vases, but let's say it was just a bunch of flowers. Well, we're not leaving enough negative space for the viewer to focus on what you are wanting them to focus on. So, ixnay on the hour flay in the background, give us a little bit of negative space. I'm such a dork. I don't even know why that came out of my mouth. Okay, but I still love florals. I love doing a lot of florals. And when I do abstract florals and it's like whoosh, whoosh, like there's like a lot of movement and a lot of stuff going on. Like I did this one piece called Pedal to the Metal, and it's just really, really like a lot going on in it. But I made sure that within it, there was some negative space, particularly on the corners and on the edges, so that we could go there and have like just be able to take a bit of a breather. Now, remember I said that the negative space doesn't have to be solid. One of the things that I love are paintings that have, a lot of different layers, and you may not be able to see all of the layers, but you can tell maybe there's some transparency, a little bit of transparency, or maybe there's been some scratching in it, and so you can see the layers behind it. So that negative space can be an incredible place of interest, like super, super interesting, while still pointing, not taking away from the focal point, not, taking away from the feature. But those layers can be so interesting and create such depth. So your negative space can be just really, really, really interesting. And I like to say, I like my paintings the way I like my people. I want them to get more interesting the closer I get. And so if you are looking at a painting from across the room, you might just see that area in the painting is just negative space and might look more solid. But the closer you get, you can see that there's so much nuance to it, right? So much movement within it. That's why I was saying, we were talking about, ways that you can provide movement, that negative space can provide movement, and that's one way to do it. Another thing that you can do to create or to enhance negative space with a painting is by using stencils. I've done this. I have a painting, Annie Oakley, and within that painting, in the background, I used some stencils that were had more of like a Western motif, because that's Annie Oakley. That was part of what she did. Annie, get your gun, sort of thing. But anyway. I don't think Annie Get Your Gun has anything to do with Annie Oakley. All right. I'm an abstract artist, so don't listen to that. But anyway, all right. So, but using stencils on the background could be really, really cool. Also, I did a painting of Abraham Lincoln. It was a mixed media piece. And I wanted the negative space to actually contribute to the feature of Abe Lincoln. And so within that, what I did is on the background, I took a part of a speech that he wrote that says, "With malice towards none and charity for all." And so on a pen that was lighter, it had a lighter value than the feature of him. With a pen, I wrote hundreds of times that quote over and over and over and over again. So it was a way of providing movement within the piece and interest by using that negative space to enhance the feature. And so that's what's so exciting, is that like, how can I use this negative space to incorporate just more interest within the piece? And then another way that I just think is, kind of maybe obvious, maybe not, is to change your color values within the negative space. So as we see here in Matisse's, you've got this really light value and you've got a darker value. So he uses a medium value to enhance the other two. So using values can be a great way to use your negative space to enhance the feature of what your painting is about. Now, I find that just kind of personally, I usually use a lighter value within my negative space, but not always. Sometimes it can create something moody or a little sexy. If you use a darker value in the background or in your negative space to enhance the feature, that could be really, really amazing. Why can I not remember artist's name? It's got to be ADD. But I'm thinking about this artist I love from the Philippines, and he does all of this incredible abstract work, a lot of abstract figurative, and what he likes to do is use really dark values, like dark jade green and dark, deep blue, deep chocolate brown. That's what he uses for his negative space. And man, it does so much to enhance the feature of what he's painting. All right, lastly, this is a big pro tip, because I know this is like, you remember I was saying something that I never really considered, and now that you know it, I do want you to consider it for sure, especially as you're wanting to elevate your art. But what I don't want you to do is like put it so far in the forefront of your mind that you lose that playfulness and you lose that freedom, that creativity in your art. So use it as more of like not the left side of your brain, but the right side of your brain. And so the way that, just from a practical standpoint, that I do it is I will go into a painting and I will just be freely expressive. I'll just create whatever it is I want to do. Like if it's like I created a floral painting, I'm just enjoying myself. I'm having a really good time. I'm considering the negative space. I'm considering that I don't want the entire canvas to just be super in your face. I'm considering the negative space. But it's not like the thing that I'm thinking about all the time. I'm really coming from a place of just being really open, being a vessel, letting come through me what comes through me. And then there comes a point where I'm like, okay, well, how do I want to treat this negative space? What do I want to do with this? Sometimes the negative space just chooses you and you don't have to do anything with it. Sometimes it's just there. You're like, oh, well, that was helpful. That worked out great. But oftentimes I'll change backgrounds. I will like change colors. I'll change values. I'll do that. But I do that at, like maybe towards not the end, but it's not going to be in the forefront of my mind. So I want you to consider that. I know this is really, really important. I know this is going to change your work if you haven't been incorporating this, but like, don't let it take away from your creativity. You'll get to it when you get to it. And let me tell you, when you get to it, it will really, really enhance your work. So if you hadn't considered this before, I hope you will consider it now. And also, by the way, if you are watching this on YouTube, I thank you so much. I would love it if you would like and subscribe to this episode. And if you are listening to it on your favorite podcast station, I would be so honored if you would give us a 5-star rating and a review. That really helps us out so that we can help more artists do their thing, make great work, and, just have the freedom of expression and creativity. Lord knows we need more of that right now. All right. Until next time, take good care of yourselves and each other. Peace out. Whether you are a new painter or a seasoned one, there's always something that we can do to elevate our art to fine art status. That's why I created the color course for Rebels, to give you the tools to do just that without the hefty price tag of art school. I am a grateful 7-figure artist, and this course is everything that I use in my art practice to sell paintings globally, to get into art galleries, to get into exhibitions, and everything like that. So the color course for Rebels is going to teach you all about values. It's going to teach you about composition. It's going to give you tips for you to find your own style. It's going to help with color saturation. It's going to give you my trademark color mixing method. And within the course, I also paint an entire painting, start to finish, including the fugly stage. And the price for the course starts at only $67. So if you'd like to learn more about it and elevate your art, go to the link in the show notes to learn more about the color course for Rebels.